What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and do some in-depth technical analysis on what you should be looking out for tomorrow. I'm also going to talk about the overall market and how this may affect Tesla for the next few days. I'm going to talk about what's going on in the markets and also what the news is saying about Tesla. And finally, I'm going to end this video by talking about what on earth the man, the myth, the legend himself, Elon Musk, liked on his Twitter page, which tells a lot about how great Tesla really is. Now, before I break any of this down and get into any more details about why on earth this is very important and what's going on with Tesla's share price, I do have to mention a couple of things real quick. The first thing is I'm not a financial planner, so please don't take this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, but benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed 6 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. You can always sell these 6 free stocks for cash and buy some Tesla shares for free in this limited time offer that ends in just 9 days. So please check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So looking at Tesla, in my previous video, I predicted that Tesla would get a really nice kind of rip into open. We saw this nice rip up to about 778, and my key resistance level was actually around 776, so it was very close. Sometimes it's a little bit off, but it was actually very close. And you can see that, look, looking at what happened, we ended up dipping below that 752, maybe around 750 range. And what happened was we kept going. And then my next key support level would have been that 733 range, right? I talked about 733. We ended up bouncing up 734. So it was very close to these ranges that I'm talking about. Very, very close. And it just goes to show when I talk about support and resistance levels, pay close attention to that too. Pay close attention to both sides because this could give you a better understanding of what Tesla may end up doing. Now, even though we didn't end up closing green, at the end of the day, we were just barely red, down 0.18%. It wasn't necessarily a bad day for Tesla, pretty much a sideways day, but we did get some nice pushes up there. But what's happening is this is completely healthy in the markets because when I zoom out, if you look at this carefully, you'll notice that Tesla was pushing up really hard last week. And I mentioned previously that it was possible for us to get a consolidation week, maybe some downside, but I thought that was less likely. But now I think it's actually more likely for us to see some downside. So what I do expect to be happening now is our overall volume is not necessarily in the best of states, and unless we get that next leg up, it's possible that we actually retrace a little bit. We kind of cool off on the RSI, maybe drop like a few percentage points before we get a nice rip right back up to the upside, because it's kind of like I've used this analogy before. If you are constructing a building, you need a strong foundation, and if you're kind of just ripping through these resistance levels so quickly, it's not necessarily super, I want to say, like healthy or a sustainable way at which the share price is moving. So generally when things like this happen, we want to see the share price kind of slow down just a little bit, kind of take a bit of a breather. And that is what I think is appearing to be happening now in the overall market. So why do I think that's what's happening? Let's actually talk about this. So when you look at the SPY, okay, let's use daily candles. You could already see the volume wasn't that great. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't necessarily great. And we often have this occurrence where there are these gaps. Okay, remember how there was this like, I think it was like right here. There's this tiny little gap. I don't know if that's the perfect spot, but we had this gap, and you could see the SPY ended up filling that gap. We have a gap like right here. The SPY fills it again. Down here, another gap. SPY filled that gap. So the SPY has a tendency of filling these short-term gaps. And you'll notice, and I mentioned this in a previous video, the SPY has this gap down to around that 406, maybe 405 range. So the SPY might retrace just a little bit before getting a next bounce, and we see the next leg after that. So it is possible for us to see some downside on the SPY before it rips. It's also possible for this thing to kind of surprise us and just start ripping from here, because I'm not necessarily trying to say that if we descend a little bit, if we drop like 2% on the SPY, it means we're in straight up bear market territory and we're going to crash to like 350. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we're going to drop a little bit, get a nice bounce, then push even higher to see the next leg. And I do believe the SPY is going to be in the 420s very, very soon. It's also possible that we don't fill the gap in the beginning, we just push up and we drop later and fill it. But I find that less likely. I think it's more likely that this week we're going to see consolidation. I think it's shorter trading week, so the market might kind of descend a little bit, and it's going to bring a lot of tech stocks like Tesla with it. Now, not just the SPY, but the Nasdaq is showing very similar moves. I mean, we also have this gap down right over here. It does look like, as of right now, it's starting to kind of descend a little bit. It might fill this gap and then kind of cool off on its RSI before getting a really, really nice bounce to the upside. That's going to help Tesla and a lot of stocks move. So, what does this mean for Tesla? Well, right now, if you look at the fear and greed index, the fear is kind of subsiding a little bit. The market's not as fearful, but I wouldn't be surprised if we become a little bit more on the fearful side if the market drops. But then I do expect a nice bounce to come and things should kind of subside for just a couple of weeks. I'm still more in favor of the bulls than the bears overall. I just think that we need a slight cool off period before we see the next leg up. So, what does this mean for Tesla? Okay. Here's what I want you to know. When it comes to support and resistance, it's important to know this before I talk about price predictions or things like that. If I'm completely wrong, right, and if this thing actually surprises everyone and it starts pushing, if we break past like 780, that's $780 resistance range, if we manage to break that, we're going to head to 800. And if we break 800, there's a lot of room for us to start pushing to that mid $800 level. Now, do I think that's going to happen? It's possible, but I just find it a little bit less likely. I think it's more likely for us to kind of consolidate and maybe drop a little bit before that happens a little bit later. Now, if we drop going into like tomorrow and the later days, we have some support around that 752, maybe 750 range. And if that doesn't hold us, then 733, 734, that's also the key range to be looking out for. If that doesn't hold us, then 719 is in the picture, and then 700 flat. Now, when it comes to the gap I was talking about, if you want to know where the gap is, I could actually show you that again. It's right here, way down here. The gap would be around 710. So it is possible Tesla has one last dip before it starts to rip. Now, what would I predict for tomorrow and the next upcoming days? Well, what Tesla has a tendency of doing is in the opening hours of the market, we get a big push, then we kind of consolidate, trade sideways for the rest of the day. Next day we push, trade sideways. We got to push, then we start kind of like dropping today. And it was the first time this thing did this for the whole week. So from a technical perspective, I'm going to show you some technical indicators kind of to like help back up my claim. So on the 2 hour time frame, we're still respecting a bit of an upward trend, but we're starting to see the MACD curling. It's getting closer to the 9-day moving average. RSI, it's relatively high, but it's starting to cool off just a little bit. And it's not necessarily in a bad state. If you look at the 5-minute perspective, we're starting to see this like downward pressure that's kind of pushing us down just a little bit. I don't think it's going to be that bad. And I am still more in favor of this thing actually pushing up in a few weeks. But until then, what I would anticipate is this for tomorrow. So hold on, let me see if this is the right chart. Tomorrow is June 1st, right? So what I would anticipate is this. I think Tesla is going to actually have a nice push up. Where's my polyline? A nice push up into opening right here, kind of like this 776, 778. We're going to push up again. And I think that if we manage to break it and we start pushing, this thing could actually rally. But based off the pattern, based off what the market's doing, it seems a little bit less likely. It seems like we might get a repeat of today in a way. We push up in the opening and we slowly kind of bleed off throughout the day, just cooling off our RSI, kind of consolidating, getting comfortable in these higher ranges. And we might see another red day for tomorrow. It is possible Tesla goes down to that 740 range and maybe drops a little bit harder because it does have a 2.0 beta or maybe a little bit higher than that. And it might drop a little bit higher than some people anticipate. So it is possible this thing goes as low as that 740 range, maybe bounces off that. It kind of closes in that 740, 745 range, somewhere around there. I mean, it's just my prediction. Is it guaranteed? Not necessarily. But the more days that pass, the more clear the picture is going to become if we are truly going to fill this gap first before we rip, or if we're not going to fill it and we just start ripping from there. Because either way, it's possible, right? It's possible that Tesla just pushes up to the 800s, then we drop a little later to fill the gap, or we're meant to fill this gap now, right, in this week before we start to rip up going into like next week, right? Either one of those are possible, but right now, like I said before, excuse me, us dropping and getting closer to filling this gap seems more probable based off the volume, based off technical indicators. If it's wrong, then pay attention to the resistance levels and everything else that I showed you. With that out of the way, I want to talk about this piece of news right here. So you can see right here, Electric has reported that Tesla is considering adopting Apple's AirPlay to improve auto quality. So that's also a really, really, really good update in my opinion, because it really improves their Bluetooth, not necessarily Bluetooth, but their audio quality instead of having to use Bluetooth just like that. And that's going to really put better sound system um, improvements for the vehicles and the user experiences. So, in essence, that's a pretty good piece of news. The fact that they're working on these tiny little details. And I wanted to actually bring this up for that reason. Tesla is a very great company because they work on these tiny details. How do the handles work? What is the color of the car? How is the user interface? How is the sound? All these things matter because when you really understand your customer, that's what helps really, really improve the brand, and it gives them a better image for when more and more people start to buy these cars, because Tesla is going to be selling millions per year in the future. I really believe that. And that to me, big, big, big piece of news. Now, Elon Musk also liked this tweet right here. This person known as Tesla Owners Silicon Valley, they stated that outside of being a huge fan, it's like, why take stabs at a company who is driving American innovation? Tesla is providing 110,000 jobs directly and 500,000 jobs indirectly. You brought car manufacturing back to the USA, not away. So I 100% agree with this claim. And this is just my personal opinion. You're free to disagree with me. I'm okay with listening to people on both sides of any aisle. I love to hear other opinions. But here's how I see it. Elon Musk liked this tweet because he's reminding everyone that Tesla is an incredible company. They're bringing in jobs, they're bringing in tons of tax dollars, they're doing great things. Now, people can have their differences, they can have different opinions, and that's fine, right? There can be improvements made to the company, but they're providing so much capital, so much output into the world. They're making the USA a major car manufacturing country, which is something that is not necessarily as emphasized as before. So to me, it's amazing news. It shows how much they're impacting the world and our economies. And I expect these numbers to get bigger and bigger and bigger as they expand and grow and open more gigafactories and do so many other things as they enter AI, full self driving technology, and other ventures like that. So, with that out of the way, excuse me, I want to thank you all for listening. Please have a great rest of the day. My prediction could be completely wrong. I know. I understand. Predictions could be wrong. But as of right now, technicals are suggesting we might see some down, so we might kind of drop a little bit. It's very possible for us to end up closing kind of red. It's possible we fill this gap first before we get a nice bounce. The next few days are going to reveal what really happens, and it's completely normal. I'm not necessarily bearish overall for the next few weeks. I think we're going to have somewhat of a drop before a really nice bounce, and I do believe the SPYs can hit the 420 soon. I do believe Tesla's going to start rallying to the 800s temporarily before we see other big moves. With that out of the way, I want to thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and be an intelligent investor that does not let their emotions get the best of them. Stay strong and be careful with your trades, and I will see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon, and peace out.